Welcome to Web3 on Fire, where we take you on an inspiring journey through the ever-evolving world of Web3. In each episode, our host Rob delves into the heart of the latest innovations in decentralized technology, including account abstraction, smart accounts, aka smart contract wallets, and the future of work in the Web3 ecosystem. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Web3 on Fire. Today on the podcast, we've got Kairon, super prolific writer over on Mirror, as well as at Folklore. Super interesting topics and content there. Recently dropped the DGen archives, documenting all of DGen and the token and the history. So super interesting and excited to talk about that, as well as a fixer at Alio. So welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me, Rob.
Absolutely.
My pleasure.
So let's get into some background about the person who is Chiron and how you got into tech, what intrigued you about it, and then how you got into crypto, and if there was a particular person or project that pulled you into crypto and Web3.
Excellent. So yeah, the way I usually break down this story is I've been working in e-commerce and digital marketing for the past 11, 12 years at this point. And yeah, part of being a good marketer is always staying on top of stuff. I got to know everything going on all at once. I'm a very online person. And a part of that before joining crypto was staying very up to date with everything going on. I wasn't fully in. I didn't have any coins, but at least I was very aware of what was going on, what the technology stood for, all of those things. And then in late 2020, I noticed like a shift happening. The smart contract narrative, the narrative around protocols, about projects launching and becoming more collaborative, stuff you could actually jump into and participate in, started happening. And that's when I saw my call to join in. As long as I could participate, I was totally game for that. And then came the NFT bull run, DeFi summer, the DAO time where I was like super active in an absurd, ridiculous amount of DAOs, more than I should have joined at the time. But hey, I was very eager. I was very excited. I wanted to help out everyone. And yeah, the past couple of years, after things quieted down a little bit, I took more of a sense-making role, like looking at the tech, looking at the stuff people were talking about, looking at the lessons learned, and interpreting it to turn them into lessons that we can use in this new wave. And yeah, look at us at the start of a new bull run.
It's such a beautiful time. And I think that sense-making piece is so important. There's tons of research and tools and platforms in the tech side, but really actually understanding, breaking down all this information, turning it into knowledge, and then making sense of it all and serving that up to people in a way that we can understand and digest and really take a good look back and have some rules to understand or principles to take from each of these cycles, since they certainly come in cycles and they differ each time and they build on each other and such. Yeah. How did you come to write on these topics, and then how Folklore and all of that came to be?
With Folklore, that was an interesting story. I'm actually not part of the core team or the main community in Folklore. I'm just an adjacent collaborator, but I'm very happy to be so. Like, to give you the story and how I'm related to them. Back in 2021, Mirror, the publishing platform, used to be very exclusive. You used to have to pitch what you wanted to write and go through a process called the write race. And if you were deemed worthy, you got the token to start your own publication. So it was very segmented. Throughout that process, I managed to get access to the right token and start my own publication before Mirror opened up to the public. And yeah, that was a huge hit. Like I remember feeling like $1 million when I got that token. So I started writing about the stuff that I knew. Hey, sure, we're excited about this technology, but we're not thinking of the repercussions of how it could be extrapolated. What would happen if the whole world used blockchain? That kind of out on the clouds thinking. And through that, at the time, another great thinker in the Web3 space called Rafa the Builder, he was working with Mirror as their community lead. And we got to talking, we got to discussing our ideas, we got to, just becoming friends. And over time, we built a relationship so that when he left Mirror and started Folklore, which is essentially what originally was called a decentralized media network, decentralized autonomous media network, a DAM, It's essentially like a thought experiment. If you channel a steady drip of information at some people, cool stuff is going to happen. They're going to build projects, they're going to kickstart initiatives. That's essentially what Folklore is. And I was a member since the very beginning, and I've proudly held every single season pass and every single contributor badge. But yet, I am technically not an official part of Folklore. My first and only so far full involvement with them was for this Degen piece. I was very interested in what was happening with Degen. I actually held some at the time. And I was like, you know what? This is actually not just a meme coin. This is not just a joke happening. There's something else in here. So I started doing some digging, and it just so happens that at that time, Rafa posted a bounty. Hey, I need someone to do like a full breakdown on Degen. And I was like, yeah, here we go. This is the universe
Perfectly
in the works.
aligning.
I need to dive deep into this. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. I love
So yeah, I dove deep.
Permissionless nature of both like Folklore and you contributing to this, but clearly providing value. And then that moment where then there's a piece and the bounty caster side or the bounty side on that too is amazing. So yeah, that's super cool. But please keep going. Yeah.
Exactly. It was so beautiful. Yeah, and it was serendipity at work. I would have done that research anyways, but at least I got a way to share it with the world. And that 20-page essay that I published is not even half of what I found. Like, I dug deep and I found pretty much everything to do with Degen. But yeah, just know like the stuff that's in there is the most relevant, is the most useful. But there's a lot more information to uncover. It's super, super detailed. It gave me a ton of confidence in Degen. Not financial advice, just talking from a technical and cultural perspective.
No, the points of convergence
absolutely.
and just even you running through the smart contract and trying to help people to understand and diving deep within this. But it's crazy to be sense making in the moment. This is a recently launched phenomenon, and being able to capture that mind share of what's happening collectively and then somehow consolidate it into a huge piece, which is just amazing. That's super cool. So maybe let's back up just a little bit and talk about how obviously one of your first articles involves Web3 and this new kind of concept. Let's roll back to those days in terms of what was this big switch over that you were feeling that was going to change things. We had already had, as you had said, the NFT run up, DeFi summer, and then this DAO contributor, open contributor kind of concept coming, and this realignment of values that then were collectively known as Web3 as it shifted culturally. Yeah, let's dive on that.
Absolutely. So yeah, something I really cared about at the beginning is a type of data called schema. And essentially what that is, how do you tag information to identify it? How do you know my name comes up as a writer versus a professional sports player? That's essentially what schema is. And I just think that the concept of a blockchain used to fetch and distribute data is just better practice, full stop. Like, sure, Amazon and Google and Microsoft offer their own clouds that are efficient in themselves. They're quick, they're cheap, and blockchains may be not as efficient at that yet, but they're getting there. But what they do is they allow anyone to take from that data as long as it's built the right way. And that allows, have you ever seen that XKCD meme about like the platforms being built on a stack of little blocks? And right in the corner, holding everything from tumbling, is an unmaintained repo.
Beautiful.
That is essentially what blockchain solves for data. It allows to have a clear trace that has no weak links for information. So if today you call me a writer, 10 years from now, someone will be able to fetch that and call me a writer. And that was the thing that clicked. That was the thing that made me think differently about this whole space. Yes, the social and cultural aspects and the political aspect of what it could become are gigantic. But the most important thing is they give us control of our own actions online, of the stuff we build online. It allows us that if someone attributes something we made 10 years from now, we will still get like the due credit and the due attribution.
Yeah, in this immutable way, specifically that's secure and again is long lasting. And that piece too about the internet computer as well as the data side. So we have two parts to the whole that are necessary. One, to run the programs that access the data, and obviously the data in order to be surfaced and to be there for forever. Yeah, I love that as a concept. And so from there, that was like 2022, and we're 2024 now. So what have you seen as like the shift in realities, even to the point of these Omni apps being one of everything X, trying to create the app of everything, versus if we look at kind of Farcaster protocol and Lens and some of these others, they're have many front ends and many different tool sets that are being specialized, which is just amazing. We've got this 2-year window. Lens had an early in. There was obviously Steemit and some of these other social, decentralized social, but there's been a moment with Farcaster protocol and then with Warpcast. Yeah, love hot takes on that and like the shift from 2022 to 2024.
That I do have. So with that, there's actually 3 of my articles that hit this topic from different angles. So let's see, like the first one, and the one I think is the most crucial, is an article I called Whole Earth Theory. And it's essentially like just using a simile of, hey, the Earth used to be just one continent, and that is where Web 2 left us. We were monolithic platforms that own every piece of information. We had the Instagram with Meta and the Twitter and Snapchat and everything else in between. Now it's fragmenting. It's breaking apart. It's drifting. And that is where Web3 social will probably take us. Super niche platforms, custom front ends. You're seeing it with Warcaster right now. There's a bunch of meme-centric and Pinterest-centric and degen-centric clients for Farcaster. And that's also what Lens tried to do and is, also doing. But essentially we're drifting apart, but the information is still tying all of us together. And there will come a time where someone says, hey, I got a genius idea that no one's ever tried. I'm going to put it all in the same interface. And we'll be back to where we started. It's cyclical, it's natural, and it's enjoyable to see. Like there's perks and trade-offs to every of these approaches. If you have one centralized experience, you're giving up your information to the same person. If you have fragmented experiences, you get a lot of depth and a lot of like attachment to these experiences, but you're missing out on the other parts. Yeah, there's a lot of different things to consider. We're just living a moment
when
in
I can
time.
see it absolutely going in these cycles where it goes to the edges, comes back to the center, and it's during these different cycles when new ideas come out. There's a ton of creativity and newness that happens. Everything fragments, breaks apart, new things then are created, but then they start to glob together as consolidation, extraction type curves. How do you see maybe Web3 and blockchains being different from that kind of Chris Dixon S curve of that attraction, extraction? I think that extraction part is going to be maybe less extractive towards a particular centralized network, but rather us globbing onto Warpcast, for instance, rather than Supercast, but maybe it's used for organizations to manage multiple accounts because it has that. So I could see maybe multiple totems standing up as well. Yeah, how do you see that going?
Exactly. The word we're dancing around is protocol. The advantage that Web3 brings to this natural phenomenon of convergence, divergence of experiences is the protocol. Now we get to keep the information and the moments that happen along the way. Imagine when Tumblr penalized a bunch of content, porn primarily. Imagine if that information was able to be forked into another platform or turned into a competitor or just kept as an archive of what happened. Or, for example, like the best example that I saw, and this is what happens when a protocol dies, for example, was when Hickett Nunk, the NFT marketplace, their developer was like, you know what, I've had enough. I'm done with this. Goodbye. But they handed the smart contract to the community. And the community took those tokens and kept them and built Taya, I think it's called right now.
They even asked the community.
And now
they polled the community. People voted on the new name.
Yeah.
I was a part of that community. I was early generative art on Tezos. So that was exactly the experience, and it was amazing. It wasn't going to die. The community could take it. There was this ownership and participation from a large community level. That was an amazing experience to go through. And I think I have the shirt from participating in it was like one of the first events for Nice and Hook. I can never pronounce it correctly, but one of the events that they had, and I have this super cool shirt that they actually sent out. But yeah, that was such a cool, again, back to permissionless and protocol level. But also there was a moment that a centralized figure did have to give over the reins, and that was a beautiful progressive decentralization moment where the community truly owned it.
Exactly. Just imagine, what was the precursor to TikTok, like the other
Like
clip-based
Vine
social
or
media? I always forget that name. Vine. There we go. Imagine if Vine had handed their code base and their servers to a decentralized entity. Yeah, that's essentially what Web3 enables. It allows you to not have to go through the hassle of transferring a company and transferring a server and transferring an entire treasury. You can build it from the get-go that way, so that you ensure that even if you are not there to take care of it down the line, someone else will pop up
it
and
feels
do
like
it.
they're going to be much more fluid cycles overall versus if we look at Web 1.0 and you see the beginnings of the first internet in 1990s and then crash of the NASDAQ in 99, then the rebuilding of Web 2.0 with Ajax being released, then converging really Web 2.0 with the ability to publish and write to the web, delicious bookmarks and folksonomy, and that ability to have the user participate in the internet. But then there was capture and then the corporate networks and what we've seen throughout that. But that's such a long cycle versus what we've already seen. Of course, Bitcoin 2009-ish. Yeah, so then
9, yeah.
Ethereum 2013 into 14 with their first token launch. And so it just keeps getting, faster and faster, but they're incorporating each other. So it's not as if one precludes the other. They build on top of each other, and almost that it's this like ring moving in and out, twisting in on itself, some of things globbed together, but it just seems like it's an acceleration of that movement overall as well.
Most definitely. The way I see it is, this is similar to when stuff first started to come online. I used to work a lot with digitalizing small businesses. Hey, I noticed your cafe doesn't have a Google Maps listing, that kind of stuff. And it's a similar shift. With the platforms being launched and the infrastructure being developed, it's not about who has the best approach. It's about what approach fits the best use case, or solves the best solution. Similar to how nowadays we have Shopify and Magento and WordPress. Your business will probably down the line have an Ethereum component and, let's just say, yeah, Tezos component or a base component. And yeah, even a Bitcoin component for all I care.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that composable and things working very well, interoperable with each other. And I like that too. Solving actual problems. They are solutions rather than, hey, everyone just needs to have a Facebook page and an app on Facebook that draws people in because it has promotional tools within it. It's more actual solving for what do businesses need. Just in the same way, real kind of startups that solved the POS issue that businesses had, where they had to have the bank, a business bank, then a gateway, and the third party. There was a gateway and then the third party to actually do the transactions for credit cards. So there were three parties, and Square and some of those first parties in were able to negotiate directly with credit card companies. So that solved a real problem. And so they could really scale with that. Where do you see in terms, we've got some infrastructure that's clearly got product market fit. We have a ton of tools for community, for DAOs, and for participation. Where do you see us in terms of phases of product market fit and scalability in terms?
That's the toughest one. That is the question that a lot of us are asking. Are we ready for retail adoption? And a lot of people seem to think we are. Like, what I think is, it really depends on what kind of business you're trying to transform there. Like, brand center stuff, absolutely ready. We even saw it last cycle with Adidas launching the Cringe campaign and Pepsi and you name it. Nowadays, they have a lot of better infrastructure. Like, even meme coins themselves, a lot of people are calling them an evolution of the NFT craze. Because, yeah, that's something I've been really thinking about. What is differentiating meme coins from, like, the PFP NFTs that we used to hold? And for that use case, like, consumer facing, brand driven, something that's tangibly ownable, it's 100% ready. But say infrastructure companies, or let's just make an example, yeah, an accountant firm, a construction work company, those may take a little bit longer, because then the question becomes, the question isn't how can this technology benefit your business, more so how can your business digitize in the first place.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think some of that other IoT chain of supply stuff as well, where if they are already digitized, it's ripe for replacement and can be cost saving or secure, more secure than other solutions. And a lot of times, because we're in early established cycles of kind of companies having a market share, they can subsidize a lot of those costs overall and build things much more cheaply than an established enterprise company that would do a traditional solution. But that's a really interesting point about the digitization part. They need to already be a digital company or have a physical offering. For instance, like I have a pair of the not a JPEG Nikes, and that was a great experience to go through to see at Nike take their drop app sneaker and or sneakers and upgrade to having membership, a little box concept of opening a box, burn mechanism, but people are already used to loot boxes and these other things, so it was a really easy transition with it just behind the scenes at the end of the day, because you could pay with fiat anyway. So that was pretty interesting. And yeah, exactly, good point about physical.
Exactly. And stuff is, for example, I have a 90cc cap, and that one was another fantastic experience. Yeah, the first time you make contact with the NFC chip, you're taken straight to the mint page. And then it evolves, and it's just like a dashboard that
Your
shows
goods, yeah.
what you own. Yeah, it was super seamless. And now I get to flex that cap wherever
Yeah,
I
I'm
go.
wearing an IYK crossed shirt right now. I got that
Oh,
one
that's
at ETH
cool.
Denver doing the build experience, and it was super seamless doing the whole thing with their IYK app, doing a little quest, meeting people, connecting with badges, and then being able to shop with those points right at the store. And the shirt is amazing quality and has the chip and seamless experience. And I love that. And some of the other brands as well, like Early Majority is a big favorite of mine. Just the people getting early access, you can see design process. It's meant to thwart fast fashion and fix some of the problems, make a lifelong apparel and create these circular markets, and all these things start to enable the creativity and enable some of these other things that weren't possible without this digital tracking and physical to digital link.
That's something I absolutely adore about this space. They are really thinking about building long-term lasting stuff. That's a huge shift that I don't think many of us realize. Yeah, the world used to be based on a 3 month, on a quarterly basis. If you were still using the product after 3 months, something was wrong. So it's fantastic to see. We're thinking of, hey, you buy it once, you keep it forever. And that not only goes for Web3 platforms and products. As a whole, a big shift that came from the stuff we're building is that even the traditional platforms are now going back to a lifetime, like a lifetime purchase model.
When it's interesting too, if you have the ability to have a bit of ownership, some say, some ability to contribute, then there's a reason for you to stick around with that brand for life and not just move on to the latest interesting brand that caught your eye. And there's something to ownership. And just Chris Dixon's book, the last part is ownership, read, write, own. And that's what blockchains enable specifically. Yeah, I think seeing Patagonia and North Face, REI having kind of the repair programs, so you can actually have your clothing repaired or you can and turn it in for credit. Marine Layer, Madewell, some of the larger brands too, again, trying to fight not just fast fashion, but helping to create a ability to recycle. So it's going to be amazing seeing lifelong apparel, seeing the ability to put your stuff up on a circular marketplace, watch it move down the chain, keeping value high, because that's the ultimate goal of clothing, staying high in value so it doesn't end up in the landfill or end up as some bulk good that gets sold for poundage or just gets donated and stays in the product cycle for a long period of time. So yeah, that's all super exciting.
And that reminds me of another component of this whole part, this whole huge shift that is very unspoken about the stuff we're building. There's a little thing I haven't fully thought out, but I would love to write about down the line. That's called devices as co-creations. And that's essentially the Flipper Zero, the Playdate, the products that are built for you to tweak with them. I actually have let my Flipper
Me
somewhere
too. I love
down
my
in my
flipper.
room. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the best thing ever. I use it as my YubiKey. I use it for a bunch of stuff. And yeah, to me, that's the most amazing thing. The stuff that is a product and it comes with a community and it comes with a brand and it comes with a story, but it's also built for you to build on top of. To me, that's something that not enough people have explored. And that's something that Web3 enables by default. Similar to Degen, coming back to Degen, funnily enough, the thing that I think was the best thing done by Jacek and the Degen team was like, yeah, just the sheer excitement of the people building around it. Had it not been for Dracula and Airstack and all of these other platforms excitedly building on top of Degen, this may have just been another meme token. And Jacek may have just had to reach out to people. Because in general, yeah, like once you mint a token, once you launch a contract, once you create a protocol, it is designed for people to build on top of. Examples like, yeah, like what happened with Hicketnunk, how Paragraph started off based on the concept of mirror, how SushiSwap was a vampire attack on Uniswap. All of those things, like those are interesting stories that wouldn't happen anywhere else. And I'm yet to see, say, something like Crypto the game, but actually integrating other protocols into it. Imagine if, hey, you got to mint an NFT on Zora to participate to the next round, and then you got to swap this token through Uniswap, and not as like a shilling or marketing moment, but like part of the experience. That's something that can absolutely happen right now, and we don't need to like, yeah, even send a DM or sign a contract or whatever. You can just build it into
No
your platform,
permission
and
necessary.
that to me is the
Yeah.
most interesting stuff.
No,
Yeah,
that's the super fascinating part, and I think also with the degen comment as well, it's this moment, instead of going and creating a token and a community around it that went a traditional grant-based proposal route where people need to get permission from the community in order to receive some sort of funding. People just went out and started building, and people participated in tipping, whether they purchased Degen and then put it into their Degen Jeeves wallet for tipping directly, or waves, or there's a ton of just things that people built on top of it that enable people to use that to create utility out of it, to create value, and it just spun up so quickly. And then the L3 being then this super fast, super
mm-hmm.
cheap way then to enable these things that essentially had product market fit, but needed a solution that could be cheaper, faster, to enable these things that needed 5-second frame response, and some of the specs that came out, and learnings from the first round of the frames and games and experiments and everything that launched.
Exactly. Like it was just a perfect storm to show us, like, back to the same conversation we were having, like Degen and what's happening with the meme coin mania in general. Some people call it a speculatory frenzy, and yes, it is that in some part. Because yeah, we were pent up for so long. This is just the explosion of creativity after seeing something finally kick off. But at the same time, it's also like the live demonstration. It's a showcase of how far we've come in the past year and a half, how much the infrastructure has become cheaper and faster and more reliable, how the ecosystem is more interconnected and more composable than ever. Just, and sorry to keep coming back to Degen, but it was built on an optimism enabled platform. It was launched as a base token, and now the L3 is working on top of Arbitrum. It is bringing the whole narrative
Truly
together.
creating the super chain and composing
Yeah,
and making it so much easier to build on top of, and just have all of the ubiquity, speed, security, whichever feature one needs in order to solve the individual problem of the DApp. Yeah, no, it's please keep coming back to this degen conversation, because there's so much obviously to talk about in terms of, as you were saying, even like crypto the game, and you have Dracula as the video sharing platform, so you have to go and do the Web3 scavenger hunt as you were describing, as the participatory challenges that happen in real time as people are then live streaming it on Unlonely. Absolutely. No, it's going to be exciting when there's the really fun, exciting nouns Farcaster competition, and Willy Wonka and the team building essentially like this MySpace for noun space. So it's composable. You can bring all these fidgets, as they're calling them. So essentially open frame spec widget fidget frames that will be composable, put them on your homepage, pin them in channels, etc. Yeah, there's so many DGencast, Buoy, and Nook, and just it's an absolute explosion of front
Yeah.
ends and the ability to compose them all together too.
And it's the loveliest thing. This is what I dreamt of crypto becoming one day. Like, I remember back when I worked in Rabbit Hole, we tried to build like an introduction to Web3 Quest, and we based it on what are the straight up fun things you can do. Let's not even think of Uniswap. Let's not even think of ENS. What are the fun things you can do in Web3 right now? And we ended up doing like ENS, Dune dashboards, like very nerdy stuff. Yeah, they were fun at the time, and that was the best we had to offer. But are those really the most fun things to do? Nowadays, we have Base Paint, we have Crypto the Game, we have Unlonely, we have a bunch of stuff that's really engaging, straight up fun. Like, you don't need to know about cryptography to just enjoy the
Yeah, and you can
platforms.
jump right in as soon as frames enabled in. And this again was 2013, Facebook launching the open graph spec and being able to see Farmville right in feed and that type of thing. And obviously we know that how everyone shut down third-party app builders within these spaces and focused primarily on advertising revenue and algorithmically optimizing for getting those ads more views and getting them more money. Obviously this open protocol is why we're able to finally do this. What do you think are some of the other elements in terms of why this exploded, both DGen and DAU on Farcaster as a whole?
Similar to what happened with the rest of it is like the perfect combination of events. People are very disillusioned with what the social experience is right now. You go to Instagram, you go to TikTok, you go to YouTube, and it's all the same. It's very low effort, AI generated, or just clickbaity content. It's very little engagement. Love the guy, but for example, Mr. Beast to me is the best example of how low we've sunk in terms of quality of content, because he is a freaking genius. Don't get me wrong, he is a genius in terms of a content creator, but the content he creates is formulated to be the lowest common denominator. So people are fed up with that. Like, we want to have an actual experience, not just doom scroll all day. And yeah, even if the crypto side of things is very speculative and you scroll through Farcaster and all is just Degen Bull posting and like crypto memes, there are some moments where you find actual conversation about stuff that matters. That's something that I really defend about that DAO chapter in time we had. Yes, it was very optimistic. Yes, it was a tiny bit misguided by ideals, but we were having some conversations that weren't happening anywhere else on the internet. So yeah, like, to me, this is just humanity seeking a place to actually have something that matters and that could help them like break out of this weird cycle we're in as a society. And yeah, it's not the ideal solution yet, but what's happening with Web3 media, with happening with all of these experiences, it is getting there. It's starting to get a point where we're finally shifting away from that early majority or early adopters phase and into the next stage. Like, finally, aunts and uncles and whomever else you would want to bring in here, they can finally find a place to call
It's a
home and
safe
experience
space.
that.
But I
Yeah.
think that's an interesting point too about Mr. Beast as an example. We were promised this 1,000 true fans is all you need. You can get them and find this amazing group on the internet that will support everything that you do, and you need this magic number. But somehow the algorithm and the multitude of ad driven or specific content driven creators have made it impossible now for those people to do so. And I think now with these open protocols, it's again enabled new creators, people that maybe didn't feel so safe on those platforms as they've grown. Obviously, kids' number one job dream job is influencer or YouTuber or TikToker as their jobs. That's clearly not possible because there are too many people and so diluted in terms of people actually being able to make a living. So it was a critical time for people to start coming over to these platforms, and Dracula, Unlonely, these other apps have made it super easy to switch. Count abstraction, 4337, embedded wallets, these things are helping to bridge more people across. And I think also we had the Denkin upgrade and base come online both at this critical moment to finally reduce gas fees, and then degen focused L3 even further. So it's, yeah, I think there's such a huge confluence of events to make this moment happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Like in terms of like baseline usability, we couldn't be at a more advanced stage. Like I feel we are there in that front. And in another front, it's interesting you mentioned like the 1,000 true fans one, because believe me, I'm obsessed over that. To me, that is my ideal, and that is something I want to reach. But something I've found is that, have you ever seen that video about the start of a movement, like the dancing guy on the
Yeah,
hill?
exactly. Yeah, starts a whole movement. Yeah.
Exactly. He starts like a flash mob. It's literally perfect. And I had a small conversation with Jess Loss from C Club in Farcaster about that. We share a love of that video because to me that video is 1,000 true fans. 1,000 true fans paints the ideal. That video shows just how hard it is. Because for example, like something I've really obsessed about is creator distribution and allowing people to make that. Like, how do you use these rails to help someone actually build a living? Because that is not something that's easy to do. If it were, we would be in the same thing as Mr. Beast. We will all be like throwing Lamborghinis into shredders. But it really is hard. Like my main objective for the past 3 years was getting 10 people to care. Because I have been like lucky to have been showcased by these platforms. Mirror has me as one of the recommended subscribes, and for Lens, I was part of the creator program. And yeah, I've been involved in all of these, and I have accrued some numbers, but those numbers are meaningless unless I get 10 people to care, and that is the hardest part. And something like I have found that is truly the key there is to stop making it about yourself. That is something that's really hard to do because we all feel super proud of our ideas, of the stuff we notice, of the patterns we see happening around us. But until you stop saying, hey, I noticed this, and make it into, hey, this is happening to you, or this could affect you, or you could build on top of this, you won't get even 10 people to care. And you will be stuck in that numbers hell for the rest of your life. I have close to 7,000, 8,000 Mirror subscribers. And I can assure you, I can count the people who read my articles in one hand. And it has only been recently with this degen piece, what I was experimenting is, hey, how about I get rid of my ego and just make it about a community and people, something people already care about. And then I show them the interesting stuff. Hey, I think this is more than a meme coin because people are building on top of it besides themselves. And yes, there's a speculative component to it, but it's still making waves and it's still changing the space as a whole. Just because people just got into a frenzy and started building a literal degenerate coin.
It's an amazing kind of catapulting concept in general, but also the you're shifting of perspective and literally creating a mirror where in which people can see themselves. So it's those stories that are written so well that you literally are envisioning yourself doing the action, going through the thing, or seeing yourself in the article. Oh, I'm a part of that community. Oh, I'm in the haberdashery in the DGen DAO. I've been on Dracula. I've used that. And instead of like, that's very interesting, like an ego disillusion and shift to the we, but also more the mirror of it's me. I can see myself and I'm a part of the DGen community, etc. Yeah. Fascinating.
Exactly. And yeah, that's what sets people like us apart from people like Mr. Beast. And I mean that with us being at the advantage. Why is that? Because the Web2 generation of creators was very me centric. They build a brand around themselves. And for example, I remember when Ray William Johnson stopped hosting Equals 3 for a time, that the show just died. He tried to get someone to replace him. He tried even, I think, Gabriel Iglesias was there for a while. and he couldn't get it to take off because the show was him. And that means you're tied for
Such a
life to that
personal
stuff.
brand.
Exactly. Our type, if we build it around other people, around how do we build a community, even though that term is
Yeah,
super
but it's we.
overused,
It's about
how do we
we.
build it?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a we. Exactly. Like nouns and degen and the successful projects that will come out of this space are all built on the we.
Which is also fascinating because that really does come from traditional branding, from the concept of being able to buy a Gucci keychain. And I literally now participate in the brand. I own a piece of luxury. I am a part of a thing. Now, of course, Web3 brings the true ownership of I participated in the crowd round of designing that object and picking with the designer out of a bunch of things with a crowd of people. We did this together. Yeah. So there's clearly this shift, not just in the Web3 space or on the internet, but also in the physical world. I think as people like projects similar to CrowdMuse that are building open garment manufacturing, open patterning, working with designers that are putting out pattern libraries and making it about the we, as in fork this design. We've been able to create 1,500 articles together. And obviously events have a huge part to do with this as well. So how do you see the IRL playing in as well? Because this is obviously on the internet, but they are so interlinked and easily interlinked now.
I think the IRL component is the final and most important one. I used to say that my Web3 career didn't really begin until I attended my first event. And I had been in there for a year and a half. I already had my pieces. I already had participated in so much. I had started projects and everything. And until it was late 2022 that I went to Bogota for DevCon. And I finally met these people that I've been working with for a year and a half. And I hung out with the Boys Club people. And then I went to the Moshi party at a craft beer place that they turned into a forest in the city. Only up till then did my career start. Because I finally was able to turn the people I was working out and the PFPs into actual human beings that I care about. I built my first real friendships in this space. And even last year, my entire purpose for last year was going to as many events as I could. Because I noticed that I had reached a point in my journey that it wasn't about putting out better work. It wasn't about meeting more people. It was about entrenching myself and building a connection. And that is something you can only do in person. You can only get so far via DMs. Once you meet someone in person for the first time, a glass ceiling just breaks and suddenly you're real friends, and that lasts
that
forever.
bond is very real
And
and
yeah,
so important to our humanity, to how we socialize. And I also think it's such an interesting kind of inflection point where most of the user groups of people that were working on the early internet were meeting in person and had 100 plus very decentralized collective groups that came together all on their own by just being on a newsletter group or on a news group and being subscribed. And then they would decide they're going to make an event and come together every Sunday or whatever at a school and at a local church or a moose center or elk center or whatever, and then share information IRL, meet each other. I think even the ham radio, I'm a ham myself, so ham radio, and they still meet in person because it's so important to make those bonds where normally you're potentially only talking over the radio and not even seeing PFPs. So I think there's some interesting like community relations going back to some of these other kind of community groups that keep up these in-person meetings as a thing for human bonding and true community building.
absolutely. There's something that must be inbuilt into us. It's easy to say that we have enough with the online connection, but that is just deluding ourselves. There is a very real and very guttural part that only can happen in person. And yeah, I have a theory that the people who say that the online presence is enough haven't experienced what it is like to meet the people in person. It just enables
And
so
to have a
much.
real connection of something
Literally,
you
like,
built together. There's
yeah,
some large value that's been built through the ease of the digital connection and building permissionless and all of that to then be able to meet those people, and you've already done all of the legwork of getting to know each other, knowing what you're all about, but then there's this, then meeting in person just solidifies it and makes it three-dimensional or even multi-dimensional and multifaceted.
Most definitely. I had a close friend of mine. I think you may know her. Her name's Fiends.
No, I'm not sure. Yeah.
She's very active in
Oh,
the
okay.
gov space. Yeah, and we had worked together in 3 or 4 projects. We had run into each other several times in our careers, and we met for the first time in Bogota. And we were going to cafes and walking around Bogota and going to the conferences and all of that. And a real friendship developed there. And like ever since then, every single time I go to a conference, be it Barcelona, Paris, Istanbul, you name it, everywhere, we meet there. Like I even hosted her at my house in Madrid the late last year after Istanbul. It was just, yeah, it unlocked a real friendship that I can now carry with me for the rest of my life, and wouldn't have happened were it not because we finally went from project co-workers into actual friends.
No, it's such a cool thing. And there's something different as well, just back to the value of building something together and then meeting, because there's so much of a relation and value that's been created. So then it's so easy to connect in real life because you feel like them already. You built this trust, you built all this value. Yeah, I just love that. And groups like Cabin here in Texas and others creating spaces for people to be able to go internationally. That's another huge aspect of, I think, this wave of Web3 and crypto, is that it's such an international community and it's no longer bound by geographic borders and spaces like Silicon Valley and San Francisco and New York, or where you can find communities and pockets and wonderful people building. And then, of course, you can connect through these. They're almost unconferences, just like ETH Denver is more of a festival. They feel much less like a conference where vendors and very important KOLs and speakers are speaking at you, but rather a place for you to go connect with all the people that you've been working with and connecting with online.
Exactly. And by the way, like that's something that I've been thinking a lot about recently. Experiences like what the chip team did, like the Gossip Protocol, and I forget the name of the main ones manufacturing it. Yeah, like
Is it the Kong?
that fake
Yeah.
nail with an NFC chip.
Is it the
Sorry?
Kong
Yeah.
team? Is it that technology? I can't remember.
No, I don't. I don't. I know it's like Kiki
There we go.
World. I think it's Kiki World. Yeah. Yeah, they're fantastic. Love their product. Winnie pasted that nail with super glue to my nail
Nice.
herself, and it is the coolest thing. That when I first got that, it really clicked. We really do see each other in the weirdest corners of the world 3 4 times a year, and that is something that's not part of the normal human experience. That is something unique to our space. That we may be in Mexico City, the next month we'll be in Bangkok, and the following month we'll be in Istanbul, and no one bats an eye. That's just part of the industry.
No, it is pretty
Yeah,
freaking
like
sweet.
the need for a product
Yeah.
like that one. Yeah, it's super funny. I love that that's something that's just accepted as part of the crypto industry.
No, absolutely. And I think also this chip technology and then ZK. So just come to Alio and bring it back. We need to at least mention them. So how do ZKs and building smart contracts on top of that technology, how does that come into play and enable primitives that unlock and enable other types of amazing features and such?
Absolutely. So in those terms, like I think CK is one of the steps that's only unlocked through blockchain. Like we spoke about how yes, there are databases and cloud services hosted by big companies, but the true potential of the internet is only unlocked when you have a distributed database, which is a blockchain. At the same time, there is a whole component of a blockchain that gives away way too much information. It's outrageous that we're letting other people see, hey, I have $3 million in my wallet, and no
and
one
some of
bats an
the
eye.
data and
That
some of
is
the data
insane.
is potentially illegal to be posting publicly in potentially in certain
Yeah,
regions, etc. So we shouldn't be putting all of our data on public blockchains.
Exactly. And I remember back in that same conference in Connect at DEF CON in Bogota in 2022, I sat down with Anastasia. She is a very prolific writer, not as active in the space anymore, but she used to be. And she posted her master's thesis on Mirror. And it was about avoiding Cambridge Analytica in the metaverse. And essentially, what she wrote about is we are freaking sitting ducks by posting this much data. And all it takes is someone smart enough and with enough resources and with the information that we're posting publicly on a blockchain, same as we did in the social feeds, something weird and bad and dangerous could happen. You could topple governments, you could make people targets or profile them without their consent. There's so many things that can happen with just the movements of tokens and the engagement you have with these platforms. Like even myself, like when I worked with Rabbit Hole, I noticed that people were tracking my wallet because they knew I was the one minting the NFTs and posting the articles. So that way they could get ahead of the quests and claim early. And I was like, wow, we need a way to obscure this. Like I had a band of, I remember like I posted an NFT on Quix on the Optimism NFT marketplace and I hadn't announced it anywhere. And I already had 15 minutes.
Yep. Scripts,
Yeah,
bots
like
just sit
it's
waiting for actions to happen. Yep.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
dangerous. It shouldn't be that way. Imagine if you held 10 punks in a wallet. You are now a target. There are places in the world you don't get to visit anymore. All of that thing and much more, like stuff that even goes beyond Web3. Hey, why do we have to show people our full name and date of birth just to buy a beer? That kind of stuff. Or going through immigration control. There is information that shouldn't have to be made public or available unless you choose to, only to get basic access to stuff. So coming back to CK and how it's only enabled by blockchain, there are two things with CK. That information, that there's information that you should be allowed to keep private and make it available to the people who really need to see it or at least see if it's true or not. For example, are you over 21? They don't need to know your date of birth. They just need to know you're legal. But the trouble is, if you let any centralized entity hold that information for you, then you get into a social credit system or a big brother situation. You shouldn't let any centralized entity hold that information for you. You should be the sole custodian of it. Same as with your bank account and crypto. So that's where CK fits in. By having a distributed database like a blockchain and having the technology that allows zero knowledge to happen, because CK isn't a technology, it's a state. There are several approaches to CK. And yeah, like Helios is called Snarks. Yeah, it's a type of zero knowledge protocol. Yeah, not going to get into the specifics. It's way too complex. Even I can't wrap my head around it. But essentially, yeah, like you can only have real CK that's trustworthy and able to be built on top of using a blockchain. But you can definitely could create a CK protocol without using a blockchain. I just wouldn't trust it as much.
No, that's perfect.
Yeah. But yeah, getting into Elio, it's essentially like just grabbing these two core concepts and running with them to the most extreme possible way. It's, hey, let's be permissionless, let's be trustless, let's build something that anyone can build on top of. And yeah, that requires you to build an entirely separate blockchain. Because if you were building it on top of Ethereum, you would have to compromise on that security because you got to play by Ethereum's rules. Just by design,
It's
not
yeah,
anything
it's just by
against
the
ETH.
protocol
I'm an ETH
design. Yeah,
maxi.
totally.
Yeah, exactly. Just by the design of the technology. But what you can do is you can build a platform that uses Ethereum and its entire ecosystem of L2s and now L3s to build the application and transaction layer. And then for a privacy layer, you can use something separate that does it by the book, and does it the right way from the get-go. And you can still build it in a way that's composable. Like it doesn't need to be a competition of who's better or who's worse. There's different use cases for different
Yeah,
situations.
they're all blocks that need to be used to fit the right solution for the right time. And yeah, I love that analogy of the the one missing, like the XKCD comic analogy there. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's awesome. Awesome. I'm glad we were able to talk at least a little bit about Alio and the ZKs. So that's awesome. Let's definitely go ahead and plug your writings, projects, let people know where to find you around the interwebs.
Absolutely. So I don't really have any projects to show. I've always had trouble with the shilling section of every podcast. Because, yeah, I'm just happy to be part of the ecosystem. Of course, LU is a big part of it. Folklore is a big part of it. Jump and Radar and a bunch of other projects I've been involved with. I love them all dearly. But yeah, overall, just like the main thing I got to promote is read my pieces, give me some discussion. I love it when people call me out of my bullshit and they don't agree with the stuff I write. Genuinely do that. And yeah, overall, hit me up. I'm in Farcaster mostly these days. And yeah, pleasure to be
Awesome.
here.
No, this was an awesome conversation. Absolute pleasure. So super cool.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me,
Absolutely.
Rob.
Thanks for tuning in to Web3 on Fire, brought to you by Ambire Wallet, the only Web3 wallet you'll need. Find it at ambire.com. Follow Web3 on Fire on Twitter, Warpcast, and YouTube. Find more episodes wherever you get your podcasts and mint episodes on pods.media.